If you're reading this, then I'm gone. Found myself a spot up on the North Ridge, under that twisted juniper that's been fighting the wind longer than any man's been in these parts. Figure that's fitting. Buried my mare last week, so I walked up. Don't much matter now. This ain't addressed to nobody in particular. Got no kin left to speak of. No friends neither, not the kind that'd shed tears anyway. Just the land and whatever poor soul finds what's left of James Elijah Cole when the buzzards start circling. Might be the sheriff, might be some drifter. Don't make no difference to me. I ain't writing for forgiveness. Some stains don't wash out, and mine have set so deep they're carved into bone. I'm writing because there's a truth I've carried, and it's heavier than any burden I ever shouldered. Heavier than all the bodies, all the blood. It needs telling, even if there ain't nobody to hear. I was born in Missouri, 1844, raised up in a God-fearing home with a leather-strapped father and a mother who'd been beaten into silence long before I came along. Nothing special there. Half the men I've known had the same. But I ain't looking to blame what I became on how I started. That'd be too easy, and nothing about this life has been easy. What matters is the river. Always comes back to the river. Summer of '59. I was 15, gangly as a newborn colt but strong from working my daddy's land. It was evening, that golden hour when the sun makes everything look like it's dipped in honey, even the muddy waters of the Missouri. I'd gone to fish, get away from home for a spell. I heard the shouting first, panicked voices carrying over water. Then I saw them, a wagon, trying to ford at a spot that looked shallow but wasn't. Spring rains had carved out the riverbed something fierce that year. It was the Kellerman family. Good people, God-fearing. Thomas Kellerman, his wife Sarah, their 3 children. Youngest couldn't have been more than 4. Their wagon hit that deep pocket and the current took it. Horses panicked, wagon tipped. I was close enough to help, close enough to run downstream, throw a rope, something. I was a strong swimmer. Everyone knew that. But I didn't move. I watched as Thomas fought the current, trying to reach his wife who was clinging to their baby girl. The older boys were screaming, thrashing. One moment they were there, then gone under, then up again, smaller each time like the river was eating them piece by piece. And something happened inside me, something I've spent 40 years trying to understand, to bury, to outrun. I felt a thrill. Not horror. Not fear, but a terrible, quiet pleasure. My hands trembled. My breath came quick. I couldn't look away. It was like watching a wolf take down a deer, something terrible and natural all at once. I told myself I was frozen with fear, that any boy would be too scared to act. But that wasn't it. I enjoyed it. 5 souls went into that river. 5 souls stayed there. And I watched every moment, storing it away like something precious. When I finally walked back to town and raised the alarm, I played the part, shaking, crying, saying how I'd just come upon the aftermath, how I'd been too far away to help. They believed me, put an arm around my shoulder, called me poor boy for having seen such a thing. That night, alone in my bed, I relived it, every detail, every scream, every moment when hope left their eyes. And I felt that same dark flutter in my chest. Something broke in me that day by the river. Or maybe something was always broken, and the river just showed me plain. I left home the next spring. Couldn't bear to stay, to look Thomas Kellerman's brother in the eye at church, to see their empty house every time I rode into town. Told my folks I was heading west to seek my fortune. My daddy gave me his old colt, my mother a Bible. Never saw either of them again. For a few years, I drifted, worked cattle drives, broke horses, took odd jobs at ranches across Kansas, Colorado, Wyoming. I kept to myself mostly. The memory of the river faded some, but that feeling, that hunger, it didn't go away. It slept, waiting. I was 20 when I killed my first man. Bar fight in some nameless town in the Nebraska Territory. He called me a cheat at cards. Maybe I was. He pulled a knife. I pulled my daddy's colt. They said it was self-defense, and I suppose it was, but that ain't the whole truth. The truth is, I wanted to see it. The moment life leaves a man's eyes. That instant when he goes from being to not being. I'd thought about it ever since the river. When he dropped to the sawdust floor, blood spreading across his shirt like spilled whiskey, I felt it again. That forbidden thrill, that terrible, perfect moment. I rode out that night. By morning, I knew I couldn't go back to breaking horses and mending fences. The war was still going then. I didn't join up proper, but I found ways to be useful to the Union cause. Scouting, carrying messages, occasionally removing problems. I was good with a rifle by then, could hit a man at 400 yards if the wind was right. Out west, nobody asked too many questions as long as you were pointing your gun at the right people. After the war, I fell in with the Hargrove gang, 7 of us, led by a man called Isaiah Hargrove. Mean as a rattler, twice as quick. He saw something in me, I think, something kindred. He never said it plain, but he knew. We started small. Stagecoaches, lone travelers, small-town banks. Then bigger. Trains, government payrolls, mining camps. It was at a mining camp in Colorado where I earned my name. Whisper Creek, they called it. Small place, maybe 40 men, a few women. They'd struck silver, nothing major but enough to make them cautious. They had a guard, an old army man with a Spencer rifle. We came at night. Hargrove had a plan. Quick in, quick out, minimal killing. But something happened to me when we rode in. Something woke up. I shot the guard first, clean through the throat so he couldn't call out. Then, I just kept shooting. Miners running from their tents. A woman screaming. A young boy, couldn't have been more than 17. One after another. When it was done, Hargrove looked at me different. Not scared, he wasn't the type, but wary, like he'd uncaged something he hadn't meant to. "Jesus Christ, Cole," he said, standing in the middle of all those bodies. "You didn't have to do all that." I remember shrugging. They saw our faces. But that wasn't it. I'd wanted to watch them die, each and every one. Wanted to feel that power again, that rush, and I had. After that, they started calling me Cold Cole, or sometimes the Watcher. Said it was on account of how I'd watch a man die without blinking. Never hurried, never looked away. They didn't know the half of it. For 8 years, we cut a path of blood across the West. Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas. Banks, trains, stagecoaches, settlements. I can't count the dead. Don't want to. The papers called us marauders, and the scourge of the frontier. There were posters with our faces in every sheriff's office from Missouri to California. $10,000 for Hargrove. 8 for me. Dead or alive, though most lawmen had sense enough to prefer us dead. We raided a settlement in Montana in '76, little place called Mercy Falls. No more than 20 buildings. They had money coming through for a railroad that never got built. Hargrove had good information in those days. It was supposed to be simple. Ride in, take the money, maybe rough up the bank manager to make a point, ride out. But by then, the hunger in me had grown too big to control. I remember a woman, red-haired, young. She was carrying a basket of bread, early morning baking. Saw us riding in and must have known trouble was coming. She dropped that basket and ran for a building. The schoolhouse, I realized later. I went after her, kicked in the door, found her standing in front of 6 children, arms spread wide like she could shield them with her body. Looking at me with eyes that said she knew she was going to die but was ready to anyway. "Please," she said, just that one word. I raised my gun, and I hesitated. One of the children was a boy, maybe 7 or 8. Dark hair, serious eyes. He wasn't crying like the others. He was looking at me the way I imagine I looked at that river all those years ago, like he was seeing something terrible and fascinating all at once, like he was memorizing me. For the first time, I saw myself reflected, saw what I'd become through that boy's eyes, and for one brief moment I felt shame. I lowered my gun, backed out of that schoolhouse, told the woman to bar the door and keep quiet. Outside, Mercy Falls was burning. Hargrove and the boys had gone beyond taking the money. They were enjoying themselves, taunting people, shooting horses, setting fires. I rode to the edge of town and waited. When the gang finally joined me, Hargrove was grinning under all that beard. "What happened to you, Cole?" "Lose your stomach." I didn't answer, just rode beside him, silent as we made our way into the mountains. But something had shifted. That boy's eyes stayed with me, haunted me. For the first time since the river, I dreamed without pleasure. Saw faces. Heard screams that didn't thrill me but instead turned my guts to ice. 3 weeks later, I shot Isaiah Hargrove in the back while he slept. Then I killed the others, one by one, before they could figure what was happening. Left their bodies for the wolves and rode south with all the money we'd taken from Mercy Falls. I told myself it was justice, a reckoning. But even then, I knew better. It was fear. Fear of what I saw in that boy's eyes. Fear of what I'd become. And maybe, though I didn't admit it then, fear of what I might still become if I kept riding with men who fed the darkness in me. I drifted south, changed my name to James Bishop, cut my hair, shaved my beard. The posters still circulated, but they were looking for a younger man, wild-eyed and long-haired. I'd aged. We all do, even monsters. I took up bounty hunting. Seemed fitting somehow. Hunting the kind of men I used to ride with. I was good at it. Knew how they thought, where they'd hide, what mistakes they'd make. Brought in my first 5 alive, though I didn't have to. Then I started bringing them in dead. Easier that way. Cleaner. For a time it satisfied something in me. Not the same hunger, that was still there, buried deep, but some need for balance, perhaps. As if each killer I stopped somehow canceled out one of my own. They started calling me the Reckoner in those parts. I took no pleasure in the name, but I didn't correct them either. Let them think what they wanted. In 1982, I tracked the Winslow brothers to a hideout in Arizona Territory. 3 men who'd murdered a family outside Tucson, took their money, their horses, even the clothes off their backs, left them naked and rotting in the desert sun. I found them holed up in an abandoned mine. Killed 2 straight off. The third, youngest one, barely 20, I cornered in the deepest part of the mine. He was crying, begging, saying it was his brother's idea, he never wanted to hurt nobody. I almost let him live. Almost. But then I saw it in his eyes. That same thing I'd seen in mine when I looked in a mirror. That hunger, that terrible potential. And I knew, sure as sunrise, that if I let him walk out of that mine, he'd kill again. Not because he had to, because somewhere deep down, he wanted to. I shot him between the eyes and dragged his body out to lay with his brothers. When I collected the bounty, the sheriff clapped me on the shoulder, called me a hero, said I'd done the territory a service. I took his money and got drunk for 3 days straight. "You ain't no hero," I told myself. "You're just a wolf killing other wolves." The years piled up. I kept hunting, kept killing, told myself it was different now, that I was on the right side. Most days I almost believed it. I never married, never stayed in one place long enough to put down roots. Had women here and there, but nothing that lasted. How could it? What would I tell them? I used to watch people die for pleasure, but I'm better now. The dreams got worse. The river, the faces, Mercy Falls. They'd visit me most nights, clearer and clearer as I got older. Strange how time works that way. The recent past gets foggy, but those old memories sharpen like a blade on a whetstone. In '97, my body started to fail. Years of hard riding, bullets that had found their mark but hadn't killed me, winters spent in the cold. It all caught up. My hands shook too much to shoot straight. My eyes weren't what they used to be. My lungs burned with every breath. I bought this place, 500 acres of nothing much in southern Colorado. Built this cabin with what was left of my bounty money. Figured I'd die here, alone with my ghosts. Seemed right somehow. Last winter I rode into town for supplies. Heard some men talking in the general store. There was a killer operating in these parts. Taking lone travelers, whole families sometimes. Bodies found posed, displayed like some kind of sick art. Butcher of Bonanza, they were calling him, after the mining town where they found the first victims. 5 people, a family passing through, all arranged like they were sitting down to dinner, except their throats were cut so deep they were nearly decapitated. Something stirred in me. One last hunt, maybe. One final reckoning. I asked questions, gathered what information I could. The killings had a pattern. Always near water, always at dusk, always with the same method. He was moving south, following the old stage routes. It took 2 months to find him. A man called Samuel Pine. Respectable looking, well-spoken, traveled as a photographer, carried a case with all his equipment. No one would suspect him. But I knew, recognized something in him that I'd seen in myself all those years ago. I tracked him to a camp by a stream. He had a woman and her daughter tied up in his wagon. They were still alive, but wouldn't have been by morning. He saw me coming, smiled like we were old friends meeting for dinner. "I know who you are," he said. "The famous Cold Cole, the Watcher. They said you were dead." I didn't ask how he knew. Didn't matter. "Let them go," I said, nodding to the woman and child. He laughed. "Why? So you can kill me? I've studied you, you know, followed your work. You're an artist, same as me." "I'm nothing like you," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were a lie. "No." He smiled wider. "Then why did you watch the Kellerman family drown?" My blood went cold. Nobody knew about that. Nobody but me. "Oh, yes," he continued, enjoying himself. "I know all about it. Little Jimmy Cole, watching from the bank. You think nobody saw you? My father was there, across the river, hunting. He saw everything. Told me the story so many times. How you just stood there. How you smiled." I didn't remember smiling, but maybe I had. "You're the reason I am what I am," he said, softer now, almost reverent. When my father told me that story, something clicked. I understood. There are watchers in this world, and there are the watched. You taught me which one I wanted to be. I shot him then. Not a clean kill. Got him in the gut. Wanted him to suffer, I suppose. Wanted him to have time to understand. I untied the woman and her daughter. Told them to take his horse, ride to the nearest town, tell the sheriff what happened. They fled without a word of thanks. Can't blame them. I sat with Samuel Pine as he died. Watched the blood spread across his shirt. Watched his eyes grow dull. It took 3 hours. He talked most of that time. Told me about his victims. How he chose them. How he killed them. How it made him feel. And God help me, I understood every word. Recognized every sensation he described. It was like listening to my own confession. When he finally died, I buried him. Not out of respect. I didn't want anyone finding him, connecting him to me. Didn't want his story spreading. But his words stayed with me. You're the reason I am what I am. How many others were there? How many Samuel Pines had I created, directly or indirectly? How much darkness had I spread across this land like a disease? That was 6 months ago. My health's been failing faster since then. Lungs filling with fluid, pain in my gut that never leaves. I've seen enough dying men to know I'm nearly done. I've written this all down because someone should know the truth. Not for forgiveness. I don't deserve that and wouldn't accept it if offered. But for understanding, maybe. For warning. Evil ain't born fully formed. It grows, fed by small choices. A boy watches a family drown and does nothing. A young man pulls a trigger and likes it. A killer tells himself he's serving justice. Step by step, choice by choice. I've tried to balance the scales. hunted the worst men I could find, saved lives that might otherwise have been lost, but it doesn't erase what I've done, doesn't change what I am. There's a box under my bed with $28,000. Blood money, all of it. Give it to the church in Mercy Falls if it's still standing, or to orphans, or burn it. I don't much care. My guns are clean and oiled. Bury them with me or throw them in the deepest part of the river. Just don't let them pass to another's hand. They've done enough killing. If there's a God, and I've seen enough of this world to doubt it, He'll judge me by my deeds, not my regrets, and my deeds damn me sure as sunrise. I was not born evil. But I saw it in the river that day, recognized it like kin, and I invited it in, fed it, let it grow until it was more me than I was. If you take anything from these pages, let it be this. Watch yourself. Guard that door inside you, because we all have it, that capacity for darkness, and once you open it, it never fully closes again. I'll be dead by morning. Whatever's waiting for me on the other side, I've earned it. Just hope it's quiet. I've had enough of screams to last eternity. James Elijah Cole. Cold Cole. The Watcher. A man who watched too much and did too little until it was far too late. March 18, 1903.